Want to take you on a little journey from University of Central Florida in what has been a long history of standing on the shoulders of giants within the university community in particular, and looking at how we're applying that out into the real world. Our topic focus, of course, is digital twins, but I want to give some nuance to that too, in terms of how certain back-end technologies are influencing these front ends that we've been talking about during this time. Again, David Metcalf. I'm the director of something called METAL, the Mixed Emerging Technology Integration Lab at University of Central Florida. And I'm going to share with you some of the examples that we have from digital twin, some of how we're working in the finance industry, and also even some outside examples too that may be relevant and telling, particularly since many of you, or most of you, have some connection to the finance sector. So with that, I'll just give a little bit of background too, but some of the things that our university is known for is we're quite large and one of the largest in the nation, have been working in cybersecurity quite heavily, and our student teams win the national championships against a lot of the likes of MIT and Air Force Academy and others too. So we have quite a bit of expertise in that area all the way down to our students. Number one in game design, so a lot of the gaming theory that influences how you might use scenario-based simulations within a digital twin are influenced by that. And not the least of which is our Institute for Simulation and Training. It's the oldest and largest of its kind in the US, and across the globe has established the curriculum for modeling and simulation across multiple industries over a long span of time. So I like to say we stand on the shoulders of giants. And while a lot of this technology seems very new and very exciting, a lot of it's been around for quite a while in terms of the theoretical underpinnings. It's just new skins on it too when we start looking at some of these applications and how the current generation of artificial intelligence, of technologies like blockchain for trust and verification, and of course, cybersecurity, so we can trust those transactions and have a secure and safe operations. We sit in a $7 billion simulation and training industry research park right outside of our main campus. The left picture is the campus, and then this is the little quarter-mile research park that it represents $7 billion in simulation, advanced modeling, and has all of the branches of US military service, as well as many branches of government, and even has the location, I'll show on this next screen, even has the location 2 buildings over for the Innovation Lab at Royal Bank of Canada here in Orlando. So those are some of the things that might be notable about this burgeoning research park that represents a large economic footprint and some of the world's leading expertise in some of these areas. So our laboratory has been around for quite a while, looking at the intersection of different technologies and how to integrate them effectively for a business purpose or a missional purpose in alignment too, not just for the sake of the technology. And hopefully you'll see that. Part of how we do that is by having an innovation management process. It's something that came out of Silicon Valley for the lean launchpad and lean startup methodologies. And we've been able to look at innovation across the whole life cycle and teach that to not only our students, but also to our community, to government, industry, nonprofits, and have them all working together on this model of I-Core, which stands for Innovation Core. This is something that gives us a framework for how to deal with the constant barrage of technologies that's coming at us and whether or not they have a use and utility for a particular audience. Many people lose sight of that. I've had times when I've lost sight of that too. And I had a very wise colonel say, you've got all these different technologies, you're trying to mix and match and jam them together to create the perfect digital twin of an operation or an activity. He said, you really need to just simplify to ABC. And he said, this could be what you work on for quite a number of years. AI, blockchain, and cyber. I said, well, as long as that cyber includes the latest state-of-the-art attacks, things like quantum computing and some of the different assurances and security around AI, I could get behind that. So this has been where we focused and kind of sets a framework for the projects that we'll show from inside the laboratory. Some of the projects that I might show too are some of our projects that involve going from a blueprint to a working digital twin. In this case, it was about 28 days to do that. And this is for a Department of Energy facility that was going to be built 18 months later. They wanted to get a start on understanding some of the operations. particularly some of the more detailed and complex operations around having a full mixed reality environment. I'm going to try and go to full screen here and see if you can see this, but this is the equivalent of a soundstage and studio that's built into the building. And in here, you can see a digital wall behind, like the type they use in Hollywood filming, like The Mandalorian and others, and also has some of the connection points to AR and VR inside of this environment. So you can see that the nurse has a headset on, and she can see all the radiological lines out of what is a gamma knife. Many people don't realize that there are very sophisticated radiological element devices like MRIs and gamma knives that have security risks. So there's a security guard there. That is a hologram of a security guard. And you can see the mixed reality environment that has digital overlay of some of the important information, the digital twinning idea. But the digital twin, the physical world, and the virtual world all combined in one. So this might be a good example just to share with you too, to give you an idea, and also of how we needed to build out this digital twin in order to be able to meet the needs of this particular sponsor. We did the same thing with the VA hospital here in Orlando, the Veterans Affairs Hospital, that is the most visited in the US. 3 years before, we were building the tele-ICU suites so that you could go and start the planning logistics of such a large and complex multi-billion-dollar facility pre-construction, and having the digital twin version available 3 years before the actual building opened for operations, efficiencies, pre-construction training, and operations for those medical personnel that were going to be there. We've also worked on a number of different digital twins that are much more data intensive rather than upfront visualization intensive. Most of them have a combination of those two. A number of years ago in 2019, we were awarded from the US Army monies to build the world's first blockchain and quantum defense simulator. So we were able to put multiple protocols, blockchain protocols, in place, have enough horsepower to be able to run sophisticated what-if scenarios, human-in-the-loop scenarios, and even to do long-term durable records, meaning immutable records that we could have available for us to provide this example of where blockchain and where the need to defend those, let's say, even block lattices, which might stand up to a quantum attack, like we were looking at with knowledge graphs and hash graphs earlier in the day too. It was really good to see some of those examples. While this was done with US Army monies, it is actually an open platform. They put it in academia so that it could be an open platform to use with companies, with other branches of government, even internationally too. So this is an example of something that was placed in the right location so that it's not behind a government firewall and can be used widely. Some of the uses have been in medical. Some of them have been in the military as well too, for using computer vision to track every shot fired on a range, to be able to track and look with AI at COVID lung imaging and also breast tissue imaging with 3D data analysis, and be able to have that perfect combination of AI and human expertise, in that case, medical expertise, come together. We wrote about this in a book called Blockchain-Enabled Applications, and also on the healthcare front in the first book on blockchain and healthcare from HIMSS, that has a number of details of other case studies that use these same principles to look at how you might have a digital twin of a firing range and be able to have an immutable record of someone's performance over their whole lifetime. And you might also have immutable records that can be trusted across multiple healthcare organizations within this. These are just a few examples of how this technology is being used. We've also been able to test this, and you see the C at the top on the block, with connected devices, 5G and Internet of Things for our NSA and for our DISA groups that are operating to look for vulnerabilities in transportation, in healthcare systems, inside of building management points of interest, That's what you're seeing here too. And we have a number of examples of digital twins in those areas within the cybersecurity domain. We've even built out a whole small virtual city that has a port, an airport, a command center for if there was a disaster. Down here in Florida, we have a number of hurricanes and other things like that to deal with. So having a digital twin that can take on those environmental, those logistics, those very human-centered problems is great. And having a whole community within our medical city, Lake Nona, that has digital twin of transportation, digital twins of housing, of the retail environment, as well as the medical aspects of that, has been really useful across a number of different domains. We've built whole enterprise architectures around this for some of the different groups, like our own US Navy, and have put those different systems together to look at all the different ratings and roles that you might have within the military, and building enterprise systems to be able to manage those. A digital twin of everyone's skill set, their knowledge, and their readiness, and having an opportunity to use industry standards to take that data, even from their risks that they might have, and be able to put that into a digital twin or a model of that particular, in this case, sailor. And even being able to do that within the context of a virtual environment too, which you're seeing here on the right-hand side too, while the data is streaming on the left-hand side and showing that to you in a display for command level decision-making. So showing a day in the life of a data system within sometimes 3D space, like you're seeing here, make this a little bit bigger, can oftentimes help people to understand the visualization of complex theories and principles. And that's what you're seeing in action here. We've been able to do this for maybe some of our most well-known projects. For Boeing, a number of years ago, we built a digital twin on the platform for Microsoft HoloLens, where you can have a holographic left seat or right seat pilot. I brought in a friend of mine from Southwest and took a 3D capture surround in an instant. And all of a sudden I had a digital puppet of one of my friends who's a pilot. He's regretted that ever since this day with some of the things we've done with that pilot, but we've had that puppet. But we've also had the legitimate uses of that too for Boeing within a digital cockpit like you see here too. This not only allows you to train on complex systems and checklists within flight, but also the very human interaction too. There is a cognitive agent, an early AI embedded into that too, that you can also take over human control and be able to play out a number of different scenarios. This is an example of very human-centric artificial intelligence. You can even add gloves to this mix, and for some of our work with Department of Energy, just like in the Simpsons, where you have the glove boxes at the beginning of the show, you can have full haptic sensation. I heard someone mention that as a question in the last session, that those are the types of things that we already have built with some of the best technology in the world to be able to do that, haptics and other groups. So one of the things we've been working on the past few years and adding more of is looking at how AI is going to factor into all of these, just like the example you saw from Boeing a moment ago. How do we take the most modern large language models and make them widely accessible to our friends within the government, within industry, and also throughout academia, and connect those dots? That's one of the things that we're working on very closely to have sort of a AI as a service or a large language model in a box. And you see some of the ones that we've configured for various groups down towards the bottom. We've added Orca 2 to that list and others. NVIDIA was very generous to the state of Florida and the Florida systems, because one of their founders went to University of Florida up the road from us. And the HyperGator system is available to one of the largest academic AI services and large computing capability in the nation and in the US. So those are some of the things that we've been working on to add that A experience of the ABC of AI, blockchain, and cybersecurity together. One of the best examples for B, for blockchain, is that automated range activity that I mentioned before too, where you have a digital twin of each soldier in the US military. And You can have a ability to see all of their educational attainment, of course, their sniper training or their tank training that they might have had, any other training they've had, like medical training and first aid, and keep a immutable record of that from recruit to retire. Think about if you had this on your customers. Think about if you had this on your institutional and organizational activities that you might have too, those transaction logs over the course of time. There's a complex data structure that has to meet all sorts of government standards and regulations behind the scenes. That might sound familiar, very familiar to some of you too. There's many analogs between some of the things that we do for military grade security and the security of detailed and complex financial systems. We've also become very aware, and there's also new laws that are coming into place within the US around quantum assurance and making sure that your systems are safe from a quantum attack, where any one or any can be a zero, and any zero can be a one with a quantum-based attack system. These are the types of things we want to make sure that everyone is aware of so that they can not panic, but that they can prepare. And these are things that are emerging as standards for how you might have encryption protocols that are much more advanced than are being used right now, that start to be moved over towards and updated and modernized over the next couple of years. The US put a law in place that you have to have a plan for that by next year. That's staring down the barrel of many government agencies, and it's also a law for corporations in the US too. These are things that we care about and have put together training for, as you see in this example here, based on some of the world's leading experts from places like IBM, Oak Ridge National Labs, and also various areas in academia too. We have a chance in Orlando to put all of this together and test this in a living laboratory. Verizon has come in with one of their 5G laboratories in our Lake Nona Medical City, and the owners of the whole community that have provided land to major hospital systems, the government, and set up a whole smart city and digital twin of their own of the whole community, have also participated and partnered with many organizations to establish the largest self-driving, low-speed fleet of vehicles in the world, and to have some of the most advanced technology in terms of energy efficiency for homes and buildings, and allow us as researchers to partner with them in these areas, even a combined co-hub and working space with LEAD, their venture firm that I think RBC is familiar with too, and Verizon coming together for this advanced digital twin of the whole community. There's even about 2,000 participants for studies to be able to have this connective tissue across all of these different areas. The 3D visualization of this for leadership and decision-making is also very important too, and having the ability to make better decisions, sometimes up to 20 or 30% better decisions by having these 3D visualizations. It's a reason to use this, not just because it's new, cool, interesting, but because it actually has results. Some of those results have shown those improvements in outcomes too, especially in aviation and in medicine, other high consequence fields. Of course, finance and financial decisions is going to be one of those high consequence fields too. How can we leverage some of the new low cost solutions and benefit from some of those different technologies in decision making? Using UI like you would have in a control room or a command center is some of what is needed in triage situations. This is an example of space-based, but some of this same model where you have different fields of information that are all being fused together to make accurate decisions in complex environments are starting to infuse AI into those digital twins of the situation that might be going on around the world that you can see from your command center to make those type of decisions. Think of it as sort of the financial trading floor, if you will. Now, this is not an endorsement of any technologies in the next few areas, but I wanted to make sure and give you some real world and practical examples and for you to know the tools that are in use. One of those that we've been using in the laboratory is called Athena. artificial thought engine networked architecture. And this is from some of the people that brought you the Hubble telescope data infrastructures and some of the more complex Air Force and Space Force engineered systems too. But those are some of the different areas that we've been working in and partnering with that have licensed technology from the university. Other ones that we've worked in is in those times of disaster or threat, being able to have these digital twins and sort of portals of information architecture, in this case around some of the major storms a few years ago too, the hurricanes threatening the US in Texas and in Florida, and having a go-to spot for all of the data fusion of inputs and outputs, the digital twin of the information about the real-time happenings of those. Those are put together with low-code and no-code solutions because we only had about 30 hours to get this done. So within 28 hours, we had to have the system ready. That's usually requiring low-code or no-code solution. To do that in what-if scenarios around the Washington, D.C. mall area too, and having to be able to go and analyze potential threats and see what that looks like, are the same type of things that you might have for cyber attacks, ransomware, and other types of financial security that you want to have. This gives a more detailed example of that, to be able to see those digital twins of a whole geographic area or city blocks in action. Some of the way that you can do more constructive simulation, more of the analysis type of simulations that you do in banking and finance, can be achieved with constructive simulations for building your digital twins. And the ability to look at this with complex Markov chains and optimized algorithms for agent-based simulation can make some of that decision-making and action and those loops easier. Also easier to find patterns and trends and put those into models for ongoing use. One of the things that we've been working on too outside of the university is a venture fund. And I want to give a clarifying disclosure that the next few examples that I show you are in our portfolio outside of the University of Central Florida and have no connection to the university. But I thought they were relevant because they are in the financial area and represent some of the largest examples of AI and blockchain in use right now too for complex financial transactions. So with that, I'm going to switch over modes here for just a moment to go and take us into another area too. This is a company called Kaleido. This is a spinoff of IBM's original blockchain lab that has produced some of the largest blockchains in the world, and particularly in finance. So again, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just giving you information about some of the different groups that we've seen that are doing world-class work too, especially in building CBDC platforms and looking at some of those application areas and tools for doing that. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Again, this is not an advertisement, just showing some of the models that are out there for doing blockchain as a service with AI and smart contracts added in for groups like HSBC and SWIFT, you see down at the bottom too, as well as some of the largest insurance agencies in the world, to be able to share ratings without sharing rates in a very regulated industry that requires that consortia follow a lot of different rules, both with European Court of Justice and also here in the US with Sherman Act and other antitrust laws across the globe. How do you meet those? How do you verify and make sure that you've met those? Well, a blockchain is a way to prove that to everyone, not just the companies and organizations themselves, but also the governments involved around the globe too, so with full transparency and immutable records that are easy to show at any time. This comes into play in banking and financial services and supply chain in what's going to be a $3 trillion market space. They came up with a unique product offering of a CBDC sandbox, which is that digital twin that you can do what-if scenarios of even a whole country's economics if you were to put digital cash in place. And what are some of the benefits of that too? Here's a few of the other use cases too. I'm not going to read through them all, but you see that a lot of the things that you might have and do within the banking industry of not only managing digital assets, but also even automating complex processes with smart contracts and AI, like automated loan processes, and being able to have perfect compliance. I know those two words don't go together very often, but perfect compliance because of some of those ability to target and keep connections to those areas. This is just a little bit more of some of the things that they've seen with 10x faster deployments and 80% reduction in costs for this. This is where all cost curves are going to, especially when you don't have to own all of the hardware or all the processes, and you can put those into practice with relative ease. I do want to show you one more, perhaps, too, that might be useful and beneficial. I know that many of you have access to large real estate portfolios, too. And understanding how to deal with those real estate portfolios is what Invenium Capital Partners has been doing. Again, this is a portfolio company of ours too, and it is not available for discussion in this context for any investment or anything else too. It's purely for capability discussion and showcasing of how do you deal with the private assets of places like Cushman Wakefield and managed properties to have a digital twin of everything about that property, have in their case, over $55 billion worth of assets on platform, and be able to look at the ways that you can keep track of everything in those buildings, too, from the LEED's environmental data to the building information systems to the property management information systems to all of the MLS and demographics around that, and have what could in essence be real-time valuations or very near real-time valuations with a constantly available digital twin of the market comps and valuable information about that particular building and how it cash flows and everything else, and then provide that as a valuation as a service. So that's something that's pretty new and unique, but is well needed. And the likes of Fidelity and BlackRock have put their considerable holdings for real estate assets and real property into this tokenized platform for the purposes of valuation. And those don't need to tell you that some of the benefits of that too, but here's a few of those that are listed. Again, not trying to do a commercial, just trying to give you some examples, some real world examples of where this is being used and some of the service providers that we work with within both the context of our venture fund and also within the context of where we look for this expertise in the financial markets as we start to build out our portfolio and what we're managing too within the university environment. One of the things we've been doing the past few years is building out whole communities by writing books. Right now we have a series of books called ABC, AI, Blockchain, and Cybersecurity 4, and then fill in the blank. The first one that we had under contract and completed is in healthcare and the connection between healthcare data and financial data. And more recently, the one that we've started with some of our colleagues from Royal Bank of Canada is one on finance. So ABC, AI, Blockchain, and Cybersecurity for Finance, and what that looks like. Within the university, we're trying to build communities and take industry partners like yourselves and government partners, NGOs or nonprofits, and putting those together in unique ways to form a community around some of these technologies that really no one entity can keep up with. But together, we can all maybe keep up with that too. So as a call to action, if any of you are interested or have some use cases like some of the ones I've seen throughout the day today and look forward to seeing more of, we'd love to invite you to that conversation in that community to see where there might be opportunities to work together to advance and increase the knowledge in these areas and to put that knowledge out there the same way we've been doing in your wonderful conference today too. So with that, I'll leave my contact information up and try to leave a couple of minutes for any burning questions. I have not had a chance to check the chat. I apologize for that, but I will do that in just a moment too if I see any questions that have appeared too.
Actually, David, I've been keeping an eye on the chat for you.
Thank you.
We've solved one of your problems because instead of ABC, we think it should be ABCD, where the D stands for digital twin.
Okay, I can get behind that. I can get behind that. Yeah, we put those together very well. So I'll stop my sharing mode here too and come back. But yeah, hopefully that speed tour helped to give some examples and to connect the dots for many of you, and look forward to hearing some more from you. Thank you.
Well, it certainly set up some questions, David. So one of them is actually from me. And it's a question more about how would other organizations take advantage of the UCF skills, data, and code? Like, is there open source? Is there an open source place for this? You know?
Yeah, many of our things are open source. Many of the things we publish in the books that we were talking about too are readily available too. We, again, not an advertisement, but you saw in there, we love to partner with other organizations too. And oftentimes for quite less than organizations can do work themselves, they can have some of our bright young minds and students work side by side with them, training up the next generation workforce at the same time that they're getting complex projects done using some of those different areas.
So how would we find access to that, David?
Yeah, sure. So I put my contact information up there a
so
moment ago too, and happy to share that, and also to connect people with our licensing office. If there's something that's already been done for the U.S. government, that is available for license to others as well too.
Very good.
Great question. Yeah.
So we have a
I
question.
do see. Go ahead.
Actually, you can take it away. You can see the question. So the next one's from.
Yeah. So think about the movie with Julia Roberts, Leaving the World Behind, where a bunch of Teslas were under cyber attack. So some of the things that we've done is to look at simulating those type of attack vectors. And we've actually found some things within that Tesla network. You probably saw in one of those that we did do some areas, look at some of those areas. And we found a couple of things. And this will be a constant ongoing, what they call a white hat, black hat battle that continues on. And it's going to, of course, look at national secrets of all nations across the globe, and particularly the US is where we're focused. And our friends, what we call the other ABC, Australia, Britain, and Canada. So there's two ABCs just to confuse you. But we oftentimes share data back and forth in those areas to try and prevent cyber attacks, and finance and healthcare are going to be two other high attack vectors. So we're very concerned about that. Which kind of leads to the next question that you had too. Maybe I get good questions too. What type of blockchains are we exploring? What's your point of view on Hedera? So we like the fact that Hedera is a hash graph and has some particular data points that you can set points either with time or space or location that can be multi-factor authentication, not just relying on a blockchain itself. And we are looking at other protocols that do the same thing too. I'm not going to promote any particular algorithm, but I will say that some of the ones that came out very high for us were Flurry and were Algorand out of MIT. And also certain strains of Ethereum that use certified blocks underneath too. Those are some of the things we looked at. And then we did a pairing or matching against our US NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Testing, that have come out with 4 candidate replacements for the current generation of cryptography that's used throughout the globe. And those many of those protocols come out of IBM, Brown University, other places like that too, called Crystal Kybers and Falcon. And we're making sure that those blockchains match to that next generation cyber quantum resistant technologies for cryptography. And that's a mouthful, but hopefully that makes sense too. And I'd be happy to follow up with you as well on some of that too. I'll post my email address as well too, just so that you can follow up in the chat too, if so that it's more enduring than just my one sliver of time here for presentation too. But I did want to make sure and stay close to my time limit to keep us on track. But happy to answer any follow-on questions as long as it's okay with the organizers in chat as well too.
Yeah, I think we can transfer that to chat, David. I think that would be good. I don't want to cut Dahong short, even though he's the last of the day. He's closing the loop for